Today we are taking a look at Muichiro Tokito from Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba. This is the XrossLink figure by SEGA. Demon Slayer. Kimetsu no Yaiba is an action series centered on demon slayers, breathing styles, and battles that give each character a very distinct visual identity. Within that story, Muichiro Tokito is one of the Hashira and the Mist Hashira. He is known for his quiet presence and sharp focus, and that calm but intense atmosphere makes him one of the standout swordsmen in the series. Today's highlights for this figure are the carefully crafted sword, the dynamic posing, and the strong mist atmosphere. The first highlight is the carefully crafted sword. The hand area is packed with detail, from the thick gold guard to the black handle pattern and the inscription near the base of the blade. Because so much information is concentrated around the grip, the sword feels like a real centerpiece instead of just a simple accessory. The second highlight is the dynamic posing. The body stays low, the arms gather tightly at the front, and the blade pushes straight outward, so the figure feels compressed and ready to release movement at any moment. That energy is reinforced by the wide clothing, the trailing hair, and the mist effects spreading around the body. The third highlight is the strong mist atmosphere. The translucent effect parts stay low around the base, rise at the sides, and then branch out into thinner tips, which gives them a flowing shape instead of a heavy one. That atmosphere also connects nicely with the green at the hair tips, so the whole figure keeps the same visual mood from the head to the outer edge. This channel brings you figure reviews and anime merchandise updates straight from Japan. If you enjoyed this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe. The head leaves a strong impression through a face that looks calm at first but carries a very focused tension once you look closer. The eyes are large and set inside a relatively slim face, and the brows angle sharply inward above them, which immediately tightens the expression. The irises use a pale blue-green tone, and the darker outline around them keeps the gaze clear against the whites of the eyes. The upper eyelid lines become stronger toward the outer ends, so the expression does not drift into softness, even though the face itself remains youthful. The nose is kept small and restrained, dropping only slightly from the forehead plane before stopping at the tip, and the mouth stays closed in a very small shape. Because the mouth does not pull wide or add much movement, the tension stays concentrated in the eyes and brows. The cheek line narrows cleanly toward the chin, so the lower half of the face feels light and neat rather than round or heavy. The hair supports that expression extremely well. The bangs are not dropped as one flat sheet. Instead, several thick strands are cut into the forehead, with the central strand reaching the lowest point and the surrounding strands stepping back at slightly different lengths. That layered arrangement gives the forehead line a broken rhythm instead of a smooth single edge. A separate long side strand falls in front of the ear, runs down along the outer edge of the face, and then curves toward the front of the chest, adding one more diagonal line across the head area. Behind that, the rear hair flows broadly backward from the head and opens into multiple long sections. The middle area remains dark, while the tips switch into green and flare outward in different directions. Some strands lift upward, some stretch toward the rear, and others curve down lower, so the back of the head never reads as one heavy block. Even the border where the black changes into green follows the shape of the strands rather than cutting across in a straight line. That makes the color transition feel tied to the movement of the hair itself. With the face pulling forward and the hair sweeping strongly backward, the head already carries a complete sense of motion before the rest of the body is even considered. The upper body begins with a very clear division at the neck. A thin white standing collar circles the neck, and directly below it, the black uniform continues into the torso, so the boundary between the skin, the collar, and the outfit is easy to read at a glance. On the front of the chest, round gold buttons run downward in a vertical line, and beside them sits a small white rectangular part that breaks up the dark surface even further. The torso itself does not push outward broadly at the chest. Instead, the surface narrows inward from the shoulders through the chest and stomach before wrapping into the waist, which lets the slimness of the body and the twist of the pose come through at the same time. The shoulders are not held in a relaxed flat line either. They are pulled into the sword stance, and that shift carries directly into the arms gathering tightly in front of the body. That arm arrangement is especially effective because it does not read as a dramatic cross. The arms are brought together in front of the chest in a front and back overlap, which makes the pose feel compressed and controlled. The sleeves stay wide through the forearm area and open broadly at the cuffs, creating deep gaps where the arms emerge from inside the fabric. Those cuffs do not simply drop downward either. Their outer edges rise slightly and curve outward, so the sleeve ends continue the direction of the motion. Both hands grip the sword firmly from front and back, naturally drawing the eye toward the guard and handle. The guard is a thick gold square frame with inner openings, so it has real shape and depth instead of looking like a flat plate. The handle uses a black base with a repeating diamond pattern, and the pommel closes in gold, which keeps the information dense even in a short area. From there, the blade extends outward in a long, narrow line without changing width too dramatically, so the transition from the heavy hand area into the sharp blade feels very clean. The inscription near the base of the blade adds another layer of detail exactly where the eye already wants to stop. On the back, the large metsu on the uniform and the white belt at the waist help organize the surfaces, while the mist effect parts move around the arms and torso to create distinct front, middle, and rear layers around the upper body. The lower body is built around a very strong contrast between the two leg positions. One side pushes forward in a broad, extended shape, while the other folds underneath the body, so the figure gains depth immediately from the hips downward. The hakama spreads widely from the waist, and on the forward side the fabric opens into one large plane that projects toward the front. Near the center of that section, a long ridge runs downward, and the cloth opens outward from that line, which makes the direction of the extended leg readable even through the clothing. On the tucked side, the hem lifts and creates an inner opening, and through that opening, the bent leg and foot become visible. Because of that, one side of the lower body is defined by a large, uninterrupted cloth surface, while the other side is defined by the rounded form of the folded leg underneath. The white belt at the waist clearly separates the end of the upper body from the beginning of the hakama, and once that boundary is set, the fabric below can expand much more dramatically. The folds are not broken into too many tiny wrinkles. Instead, they follow a few thicker flows from the upper leg area toward the knees, which makes the direction changes in the cloth easier to understand. The foot area is also handled cleanly. A dark tabi covers the visible foot, and over that sits a zori sandal with blue straps and a light-colored sole. Because the tabi, the straps, and the sole are clearly separated, the foot does not get lost under the surrounding cloth and effect parts. The sole also carries a visible edge and tread-like texture underneath, so the shape does not stop at a simple flat base. Around the lower body, the mist effect parts do much more than decorate the outside. The effect gathers thickly at the lowest area around the base, then rises in thinner vertical sections at the sides, and finally breaks outward into branching tips. At the front, it forms a low arc that frames the figure, while at the sides and back it rises separately instead of staying as one even ring. That change in structure makes the effect feel like flowing mist wrapping around the pose rather than a fixed circular frame. Different sections also sit at different heights, with some running close to the floor, some climbing near the leg line, and some reaching higher behind the body. The rounded mass at the base and the thinner branching tips at the outer ends keep the effect from feeling heavy. Instead, it reads as something that is spreading, thinning, and dissolving as it moves around the lower half. This figure is approximately 11 centimeters tall. That's about 4.3 inches. For size comparison, here's a 350 milliliter can. That's about 12 ounces in the US. Overall, Muichiro Tokito by SEGA stands out because this figure combines a tightly focused expression, a low and compressed sword stance, and mist effects that extend the movement beyond the body itself. The head leaves a strong first impression through the large pale blue-green eyes, the sharply inward brows, and the very small closed mouth, which keep the expression quiet but intense. The layered bangs also work well because the strands fall at different depths across the forehead, rather than forming one flat edge. The long side strand and the broad rear hair give the head several directional lines, and the black to green transition at the tips strengthens that sense of motion even more. The upper body is effective because the pose and outfit support the same idea. The white standing collar clearly frames the neck, while the gold buttons and the small white chest part give the uniform enough detail without overcrowding it. The torso twists inward, and the arms gather tightly in front of the chest, so the whole upper half feels compressed around the sword. That compression makes the stance feel controlled rather than exaggerated. The sword itself also reads very well, with the thick gold guard, the visible handle pattern, and the inscription near the base of the blade adding strong detail at the center of the composition. The lower body gives the figure much of its forward drive. One side opens into a broad extended shape through the hakama, while the other folds inward underneath, creating a clear contrast between extension and compression. The white belt helps mark the shift from the narrow torso into the wider lower half, and the visible tabi and zori finish the lower section cleanly. The mist effect parts are especially successful because they stay low at the front, rise at the sides, and spread into branching tips instead of forming a simple ring. That structure makes the movement feel as if it continues into the surrounding air. Because of that, fans of Demon Slayer or Muichiro Tokito will definitely enjoy this piece. With that focus on its tightly focused expression, carefully crafted sword, and strong mist atmosphere, collectors who appreciate controlled motion and layered effects should find it a very satisfying addition. That's it for this video. If there's any part of the figure you liked, feel free to leave a comment and share your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.